Barbara, when I read English herb books, I get the feeling that they're always grown in neat little rows on their tidy little bushes.
Well, some of them grow naturally that way, but others are the real anarchists of the garden. They spill out over the path and they dominate other plants. So if somebody has a very neat geometrical little herb bed, they've worked very hard to make it that way. I'm Barbara Damrosch.
And I'm Elliot Coleman. And if you'll stick with us for the next half hour, we'll show you how herbs grow and what to do with them.
And visit a very special herb garden on Gardening Naturally. I just love to cook with herbs, so it's very important to me to have them handy the minute I need to use them in a recipe, whether it's tossing them into a salad or putting them into a soup. So I keep a little bunch of them in a vase of water right in the kitchen, on the counter or on the windowsill. And they all look so pretty together in this bouquet, too. The green leaves of the mint next to the red dark leaves of the perilla, the dill, the coriander, gray-leaved sage, parsley, goes with everything, some tarragon, and some basil. Now, all around me, you see what looks like a flower garden, and it is a flower garden, but tucked in and among all of these flowers are little herb plants that I use whenever I need to come out and pick something. Come on, I'll show you what I mean. I think I'd grow chives even if it weren't absolutely wonderful in salads and vichyssoise. When it's in full bloom, it's just covered with these lovely little lavender flowers, and butterflies and bees hover around it all day long. Here's another pretty little herb. This is chervil. It has such dainty fern-like foliage and little white flowers later on when it goes to seed. When it goes to seed, I can't pick it anymore, but it self-sows, so it's always producing more for my salads. This lovely mat of creeping woolly thyme is also good. It isn't strictly the culinary kind, but all of the thymes taste good if you sprinkle them into dishes. Now, this dittany of Crete is unusual, but it's actually just a variety of oregano, and it can be used just as oregano would be in Italian sauces or whatever you like oregano in, but it has these lovely felty white leaves that make it an ornamental plant as well. And of course, here's my old friend parsley, which I have everywhere. It's an important larval food for certain butterflies, and also Elliot grazes on it. It's one of his favorite afternoon snacks. Now, come on, I'll show you something a little bit more unusual. This striking herb is purple perilla. It's a very useful herb. I use it as a garnish because of its great burgundy color. It's also very good in Oriental dishes. In Oriental cooking, it's referred to as shiso, and it's good in sushi. But I also plant it just because it's a wonderful coordinator of the garden. It seems to go with just about any color that I grow it with. It brings out the strong reds of something like this Maltese cross, and it also blends well with blues and purples like this catmint that's just finishing blooming, or this salvia that was blue a few weeks ago. So I just sneak it in here and there as a foil for the others. Next to it are some gray leaves of sage, and that's a sort of a background plant coming up through the gray, smaller leaves of this catmint. So I use that a lot, too. I've always been a great one for combining edibles and ornamentals, so I've got a big stand of basil right here at the end of my rose garden, which is also full of Shasta daisies and eggplants right among the portulaca and some little baby alpine strawberries. Well, you certainly can't miss this herb, but there's a few herbs in this garden that only I can find. Come on. Tucked away behind this artemisia, in front of the morning glories, I've got some dill. Just a few plants, enough for snipping. They're a little shaded, but it hasn't seemed to mind it. In fact, it's probably kept it from going to seed too soon. And I have other dill elsewhere in the garden, but here and there, my secret little dill plants. And here's another pretty one. At the base of this silver mound artemisia, in front of this perennial geranium, I have some golden thyme. You can just see it peeking out there at the base. After I cut back this artemisia a little later in the season, you'll see it even better. Now, this isn't the only place that Elliot and I grow herbs. We have some in the vegetable garden, too. are such favorites of ours that I need to grow a great big quantity of them. So I'll grow them as a crop in the vegetable garden. Parsley is a good example. Now, Elliot likes the curly-leafed kind. I like the Italian broad-leafed kind. But I cook with one or the other of them at least once a day. So here they are in big blocks right here. Now, basil is another case in point. I use it to make pesto, and you need quite a bit for that. So I have a whole long row of basil in the garden, too. Mint. Mint likes to grow where it has its feet wet, so I've planted it next to this culvert where all the rain runoff comes, and it does just fine. Now, let's say you don't have big areas like this to grow a lot of any one herb. We have a solution for that, too. Gardening Naturally will return on TLC.
Barbara's been showing you a lot of herbs around our property, but some of you may not have that much space, and some of you may not even have a garden. But you can grow an awful lot of herbs in an area as small as this half whiskey barrel.
Sure, we have about 10 different herbs growing in here and getting along together very happily.
And doing well, because this is more than just a whiskey barrel. This is a whiskey barrel with some very good growing medium in here, some good potting soil. And even though many of the herb books will tell you that herbs do well in a poor soil, which they may do under natural conditions, in the confines of this whiskey barrel, you want to improve the soil. We use a mix of 1/3 regular soil, 1/3 peat moss, and 1/3 compost. Offer rich for herbs if they were in the garden, but just about perfect in this barrel. Look at that tarragon, Barbara. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we have several plants, but this is the healthiest one we have on the property, the one in the barrel.
And the garlic chives about as green and beautiful as they could be.
Look at this coriander. In Spanish countries, it's called cilantro and used a lot. In India, it's called dhania and used in many dishes. And in China, too. Some people call it Chinese parsley.
I'll stick to regular parsley. There's a nice plant right there.
Yeah, there's Elliot's favorite parsley in there. And plenty of dill and...
And I put in this chamomile plant on the back side. My daughter loves to make tea from the blossoms as a nice stomach settler.
And I love the way it cascades over the barrel like that. In fact, I've tried to cascade a lot of these herbs over the side just as an ornamental touch. Look, you can still see that this scented leaf geranium has little purple blossoms on it. I've been doing that all season long. This is a rose-scented leaf. This one over here is an apple scent.
And those are good in a potpourri rather than cooking?
Yeah, that's what they're for.
Speaking about roses, here's a beautiful rosemary in the middle of here, a lovely little plant.
Remind me to take this out and pot it up for the wintertime because it won't survive our winter climate.
I will do that, for sure.
Now, we've showed you a lot of good basic cooking herbs, but when I want to get some inspiration on lots more herbs to grow and different techniques, I go look up a friend of mine named Mary Ellen Ross, who has a wonderful nursery called Mary Gardens in Camden, Maine. She gives me lots of good ideas. I was there just recently. I'll tell you all of the things she taught me.
Great.
I have a lot of admiration for Mary Ellen Ross. She was the first woman to graduate from the agricultural program at Rhode Island State University. And in 1946, she founded her own nursery, specializing in herbs and rare plants. The next year, she married Irvin Ross, and together they have run Mary Gardens ever since. My favorite part of this nursery is a long display border next to one of the greenhouses. It has a lot to teach us.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Mary Ellen. I'm admiring your border here. I know it's supposed to be a garden of useful herbs, but it looks more like a flower garden to me. It's so beautiful, starting with this magnificent yellow flower.
Oh, yes, this is tansy. And, of course, the main use of tansy is as a mosquito repellent.
Now, this lovely, fuzzy, soft plant that's underneath the tansy, what is that, Mary Ellen?
Oh, that's Artemisia, wormwood, Roman wormwood.
Mm-hmm.
Artemisia, and this is a moth repellent.
I love the way you've trained some of these plants to crawl down over the rocks. Isn't that beautiful?
The rocks make a nice place for displaying the variety of thymes we have. I think we have over a dozen different thymes.
This is woolly thyme, isn't it? That really
this is woolly stem thyme. Mm-hmm. And this is woolly thyme.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love the way that carpets the rocks. Isn't that wonderful? Now, that's a very ornamental thing, isn't it? It looks like a sage of some kind.
Yes, that's a clary sage.
Ah.
Yes. Now, it can be used in salad when they're young, or it can be crushed and used as a fixative for potpourris. So that the the perfume stays.
Good, that's a good tip. This is gorgeous. This lovely, deep blue.
Oh,
What is
yes.
this, Mary Ellen?
Yes, this is Salvia East Friesland.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to bloom early, and it keeps right on blooming almost all season.
What is that with those frothy white flowers?
That's skirret.
Skirret.
Skirret, yes.
It has such a nice upright habit to it. It doesn't look like it would ever need staking in the garden. What do you use skirret for?
You use the roots. You can store these roots all winter and use them in your salads.
What a wonderful plant. Now here is a wonderful display of lots of different, oreganos, marjorams, I can never tell which are which.
The oregano is the lighter flower, and the showy marjoram, this is showy marjoram, is the darker flower.
Now, this is an enchanting little thing with little balls of purple going up the stem. What is that?
Yes,
Plant.
that's what I call the stinking mint.
Stinking mint. Now, here you have some other lovely things spilling down over the rocks. That looks like lavender.
Yes, this is lavender, yes, and this is thyme. This happens to be the Italian thyme. In Italy, it is used in place of oregano. We call it oregano thyme. It's a very luscious thyme, and actually the flowers are so pretty, too.
Excellent. It's very pretty growing with the lavender. Do you find in your cool Maine climate that lavender is hardy? Is it reliable?
Yes, it is hardy with us. We have lavender out in the other herb garden, and it's been there for years.
Well, that's a beautiful little plant there with the broad, rich green leaves and the dangly pink flowers.
With a tansy growing in it.
Well, it looks nice with a tansy growing
Yes,
in it.
and that is comfrey. Comfrey is a plant that actually you wouldn't want to put in your garden. Every little piece of root, if you dig it up, it will grow. And the roots go down to China.
I like this combination where your lady's mantle is blending in with those blue flowers.
Yes, the lady's mantle is certainly a wonderful herb. The flowers last way up until September.
Sure, they get a little bit brown.
They're a little brownish
but they
now.
look pretty that way.
They're so pretty with their mustard-like flowers.
Autumn feeling to it.
Yes.
And the lovely blue flowers that it's complementing so well. What is
the
that?
blue is the hyssops.
You know, I noticed that the foliage in your garden is just as pretty as the flowers. The contrast between this lady's mantle leaf and the little tiny leaves of the hyssop and this wonderful thyme here with the silver edges on the leaves and then this blue dianthus. You told me it's not an artistic border, but I'm sure that you've planned for some of these combinations.
And the L-campaign in the background.
Ella-campaign, yes. There are a lot of tall, yellow sunflower-looking plants that you can grow in the back of a perennial border, but few of them have such strong, sturdy stems like that. You haven't had to stake it. It's just standing up and saluting. I'll remember that.
And it's also a great medicinal plant.
This is feverfew. I assume they used that to cure fevers in the old days, wouldn't you think?
Oh, yes. Also for migraine headaches.
I see.
It's a wonderful cure.
You even have some onions here.
And these are the Egyptian onions that have the little onions on the top. These can be picked off and used as you would any other onion. They're a little bit strong.
Like a shallot.
Yes, but they're very nice to use.
This looks like a huge chive blossom.
Yes.
And my chives have little tiny blossoms like that and little tiny leaves. What kind of chive is that?
Yeah, this is a broadleaf chive. Has the same taste. You just get a little more for your money.
Mariel, there's a wonderful plant in the background there that's those tall red stems and those puffy little white flowers. What is that?
That is a wildflower. It's garden heliotrope, valerian. Yes. The roots are used as a sedative.
It has a very sweet fragrance, doesn't it?
That's why it's called garden heliotrope, because it smells like a heliotrope.
Right.
It has a vanilla fragrance. Yeah, so it has been nice and white flowers. Now the flowers are starting to go to seed, and it's become a nice pinkish tone. It's pretty right straight through the season.
Yeah, it has a whole other look to it at this time of year. What's this? And this cute little thing with a white...
That's the curry plant. Not a real curry. It's a Helichrysum just like a straw flower, and you use the flowers for drying. Behind it is the Good King Henry.
Good King Henry.
Which you use the leaves as a substitute for spinach.
Oh. Oh, yes.
And it's very good. I use it every spring. I always have a dish of Good King Henry.
Oh, I love this plant.
This makes a nice dry flower. It's Anise hissus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also nice to use in salads. Few people realize that you can use the leaves. It has a nice sweet taste to it.
Well, it is nice. Well, it has such a licorice
Yes.
kind of minty flavor. I just love the way you've grown it in this tiny crack in the rock. Now, did you do that on purpose? Or
No. It escaped.
I think I like the accidents in gardens even better than the things that are planned.
Yes, yes.
What's that lovely leaf there? I've never...
This is the dwarf lady's mantle.
Oh.
And this, as you can see, has a similar flower, but it doesn't stay yellow.
But it's got a wonderful leaf.
It's a lady's mantle.
It almost looks like it might be semi-evergreen. How long does the leaf last in the fall?
Yes, it is. It's quite evergreen. It doesn't brown up until late in the winter.
Well, what is this here?
This is the edible chrysanthemum.
Oh.
It's Chrysanthemum japonica. And in the fall, very late in the fall, this is the last one to bloom. It will have huge Shasta daisy-like flowers. And it's quite an attraction here in November.
Now, I want to ask you, Mary Ellen, do you think that in general herbs are easy to grow?
Oh, yes, very easy to grow. In fact, they grow like weeds.
They do. Do you ever find they're bothered by pests?
No, not in general. Most herbs are quite pest-free, except for perhaps cosmere, which, as you can see, is pretty well eaten up by a little beetle.
Yeah, some of the lower leaves, but the plant has withstood the onslaught pretty well. Do you think that's because you grow them with all that good organic compost, or do you think there's something about herbs, the nature of herbs, that repels pests?
Oh, I think definitely it's because of the nature of the herbs, the oils they have in their foliage, and in fact they are quite frequently used as pest deterrents.
Well, that's good to know. Probably something that would help out the whole garden. I'm getting a real education about basils here today. They've got a real United Nations of basils here. This is called Mexican spice. Really, it has a spicy fragrance, too. This is called Africa Blue, and I think it's as much for the blue-green leaves as anything else. The little one down in here is called Peruvian, and this one I'm really excited about. It's called Cinnamon Basil. Has a real cinnamony fragrance, and instead of being an annual that dies at the end of the season, this is a tender perennial. This is an old favorite of mine, this dark opal basil, and its close cousin, this purple ruffles. The great thing about the purple basils is that you can take some white wine vinegar and put the leaves in the vinegar, and you'll not only get one with a wonderful basil flavor, but it'll turn a beautiful red color from the leaves. This is the standard bush basil or sweet basil, and the little one down at the end here is lemon basil. Ross, why she's let all of these go to flower? Because normally when you grow basil for the leaves, you pinch off the flowers as soon as they start to keep the leaves producing. Well, she had an answer. She uses these flowers for drying. Makes beautiful dried flower wreaths with them. And they do look very pretty, just as ornaments in the bed, especially the pink flowers against the dark purple leaves of that one. So I think what I might like to do is have a section where I grow them for flower, and then another part of the garden where I grow them for the leaves. I've been doing some shopping here today, and I'm really excited about all the different thymes that I found in the nursery. Some of them have different foliages, like this woolly thyme with this soft, fuzzy, light gray leaf, or this golden thyme with a yellow leaf, or this silver thyme that's silvery with an upright growth habit, quite different from the others. Sometimes the distinguishing thing seems to be the flowers. Here's a pink creeping thyme that's in bloom right now. And sometimes it's the scent for the taste of the foliage that's interesting. This lemon thyme has a real lemony tang to it. And this orange balsam thyme, which is very upright with tiny, tiny little leaves on the stiff twigs. It's a spiciness about that. And this nutmeg thyme that flows down with a pink blossom. Rather spicy. Now what I'm going to do is imitate what Mary Ellen has done in her display garden. Make a sort of a tapestry of all of these thymes so that they interweave and creep together. Some of them are going to be blooming while others are just about to come into bloom. And I think it'll be a lovely effect in my garden. Probably put them about a foot apart, but keep them weeded in between till they make mats. I may still have to keep after them, though. I notice that often grass or other weeds will come in, and I'll have to pull those out from time to time. But my fingers smell good.
Barbara, that was a fascinating trip you took to Murray Gardens.
Yeah, they had more varieties of herbs down there than I even knew existed.
Isn't that neat? You know, one of the wonderful things about herbs is the more you cut them and prune them in order to use them, the bushier they become and the better they grow.
You know, the other thing I like about gardening with herbs is that when I'm working with them, cutting them or weeding them, I stir up all of these wonderful aromas, and the scent clings to my fingers. It makes it a very pleasant day's work.
Herbs are pleasant in the garden and absolutely indispensable on the table. And so for now, goodbye and good gardening.
Next on TLC, doing something for your home can be easy, even fun. Check and see here on Homebodies. Then, add value to your home with some serious improvements. The Home Pro shows you how.